All right, this is my Zoom reflection video for the Thursday, and this is group 2, which has, it looks like, Grace, Abigail, Jackson, Kaylee, Izzy, and one person I don't know that I think's from the other lecture, but I'm gonna start it right now.
Yeah, we should be we are trying to go through that, but it can still create a lot of emotions for kids in the classroom. Did that make sense?
No, absolutely. So dealing with big emotions, right?
Yeah.
Good. How else?
And I think with the whole emotions part, I think it's super important to be patient, even though that can be really hard sometimes. But I think especially during the puberty age, that is very necessary.
Patience is probably one of the biggest things to remember when you're teaching, especially for this age group.
Lily, tell me about who this person is and how do they tell you anything about it?
I mean, a little bit. She was my middle school teacher and my favorite one, but I'm actually friends with her now. And so she always said that it's the toughest time to try and teach kids because they're more focused on the changes going on in them than what's going on in the classroom. Because while physically there are changes and stuff, if someone's way ahead of everyone else or way behind everyone else, they can get picked on for it. And so she's like, that's another thing you have to balance in the classroom is making sure that the kids aren't doing that.
Yes, thank you, Lily, which is a huge part of the developmental part. The last script mentioned something about the fact that when your bodies change, there's new, kids don't necessarily know how to use the correct hygiene. And there was the nurse that I used to at the high school.
It's a whole other thing that we didn't talk about in our discussion was hygiene. That's really important for kids, and even if you're not a even if you're not a teacher, that's probably really important to educate your students on. Like a health teacher, regardless of what teacher you are, it's important to teach them about that.
If there's nobody at home saying here's a stick of deodorant, or this is how to wash your body, I know that sounds silly, but those are the things that end up in classrooms that you then have to. And so if that happens, your best bet is to contact the nurse, right? And see if the nurse does that stuff. That would be a good conversation to have when you get your first job, is to let the nurse know, be like, I know this is a thing. If this happens, how should I approach it? Because it might not be your place as much as it is finding the person whose place it is. There's a woman at Baser who is she's in charge of the mentor program, but in her bathroom, because I've been in there, there is a whole those things that go over the top of the door, and it's just filled with deodorant, shampoo, toiletries for kids that don't have any, toothbrushes, that kind of stuff. So
I'm gonna speed this video up so I can comment on it more.
Little girls who don't know that they need to wear bras yet, stuff that is, or that whole conversation, or and it's the best thing is to find a person in the school that's in charge of those conversations, because it might not be you. Because if male teacher, female teacher, male student, those, there's different dynamics there, and the key is to always just find the right resource. If you feel uncomfortable having a conversation, you have to find the right resource for the person that does. So that's big. So, but it is a thing. I mean, you are dealing with kids that that their bodies are changing, and they're not as focused on school as they are about their friends and whomever they are sexually attracted to.
Because it's what we said in our discussion too. They're learning to be people.
On Netflix? No, not Netflix. Disney Plus. It's really cute. If you want insight into middle schoolers, it's really, really cute. It's a really good depiction of what middle schoolers find important, how they function. Because it's a different. Towards the end of high school, kids tend to be a little bit more academic, I think, minded.
Yeah.
Whereas middle school, I feel like it's just kind of a giant free for all sometimes. So whoever you know that teaches middle school, give them an air high five, because it's rough. Jackson, who did you know that teaches middle school?
I think, I can't remember if she teaches middle school or high school, but I have my aunt teaches K-12.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's either early high school or middle school. I don't quite remember which one it was though, but I do remember her saying something along the lines of it's like trying to hurt cats.
Oh, it's rough. And the thing is that in elementary school, they're
trying to hurt cats. That's so funny.
Elementary school teachers are, and so middle school, if you don't, there's this moment where you have to ease them into a less structured environment. And that's why it's like hurting cats, because all of a sudden they have this weird freedom. They have lockers, they switch classes, and if they don't, and part of it's corralling that newfound freedom, and not corralling it in a negative sense as much as helping them understand how to manage them themselves. Which is why middle school is.
And I think that's why I want to teach high school too. Is
I have
I
a
think
couple,
I'm better at
same
preparing
teachers who would
students
say,
to
I never
become
thought I'd like middle school,
adults
and I love them.
and to
Sixth
be
graders
better academically
are
and get
like
ready
a,
for college
are
and
just a
stuff
year
than
above
to
fifth graders.
herd
Like,
them like cats in middle school.
it's sixth graders are completely different than 18-year-olds. You talk to them differently. So, and when you look at the thing, above where it says, they're, what is it? They're including higher math concepts. Like they understand abstract ideas. That still comes with age too. So the younger ones still aren't all the way there as much as, each time it goes up. And when we start talking about state standards, what you'll start seeing is the way that the sixth grade standard turns into the seventh grade standard, turns into the eighth grade standard. Because it's the same thing. Like, understand, and then when you think of something like Bloom's taxonomy, where it starts off with these lower level thinking skills and going up, it's kind of tiered that way because they can't think that way yet because their brains aren't there yet. It doesn't mean they're not smart enough. It just means that developmentally their brains aren't there. Okay, so let's go to behavior real quick. So the main thing about behavior is this chunk about, so where it says during adolescence. Does anybody want to read that paragraph real quick?
I can.
All right, who said that?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, Kaylee. Thanks.
So, during adolescence, it is normal for young people to begin to separate from their parents and make their own identity. In some cases, this may occur without a problem from their parents and other family members. However, this may lead to conflict in some families as parents try to keep the control.
Do you guys remember?
I like that, but it makes me think about what I talked about in class before Corona started, where like socialization happens. Socialization can happen from their parents, but like even when they're not building their identity from their parents, they're still getting like socialized heavily by teachers. And I can't help but think that still like during this section.
Remember that in your life? Remember those moments where you were like, I just want to be me, and they haven't. It doesn't happen. And so
I definitely adapted to personalities of my
Grace, do you wanna
teachers
read
too. I would
that
definitely
friends
agree with
thing and then
that.
those 3 bullet points?
Yeah, totally. Friends become more important as adults for their parents and search for their own identity. Their peer group may become a safe space, allows adolescents to test new ideas. In early adolescence,
There's a
the
dog
peer group
barking.
most often consists of non-romantic friendships. These often include cliques, gangs, or clubs. Members of each peer group often try to act alike, dress alike, have secret codes or rituals, and participate in the same activities. As your youth moves into mid-adolescence, 14 to 16 years and beyond, the peer group expands to include romantic friendships.
Great. What does that do for a classroom? Why is that important to know?
Making people.
Did you ask me specifically?
No.
Okay, good.
I guess it just creates a lot of drama in the classroom between all the friends and everything like that. And some might not be
Yeah.
friends anymore, or some are just super together and they don't include other people.
That's
That's
true,
always
but
fun
it's
when
like
the kids walk in and they're like their best
it's like
friends. and they sit next to each
pessimistic,
other and they get in
like a
fight.
negative look
Now
at
sit
it.
next
Like
to each other anymore. You're
I
not-
take it as an opportunity to
Or
like
when they're
make
dating.
closely knit friendships and see what you
and
like in
then they're
people.
like, all of a sudden,
that's very true
everybody
as
in the
well.
classroom knows, and they're all of a sudden on different ends, and everyone's kind of like buzzing, and they're like, what's going on? And nobody's doing it, like learning anything that day, because all anybody's talking about is the fact that so and so were together, now they're not, and they're sitting at opposite ends of the classroom, And if you
Yeah.
can remember back to even at that age, like how distracting that was, like as a kid, right? That to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, this person's across from me.
It is
Even
very
now,
distracting.
right? There is, I mean, it creates a lot of interesting things. So what do you do? How do you manage that? What does that look like? Thoughts?
Separating kids around your
How do you
classroom
not be distracted?
in order to make it more efficient
Can you?
would be my assumption.
I think overall, like students or kids will always have whatever's going on in their back of their heads, like no matter what, because it's really hard to like pull them from that distraction.
Hmm.
But maybe just having like a fun lesson plan or something like that, and
Like a what? Say it again. Sorry.
like a fun lesson plan or like a fun activity. can help
Engagement
distract them from
is
what they're thinking
important.
about.
Good.
I feel like if you want
Good,
them to
that's
be
a great idea.
efficient,
What
though,
else?
you should try and limit like the drama and stuff that happens in your class
like,
by
a little bit
separating them.
Finding like
That'd be
things
my
that relate
thoughts.
to their interests at the time too, just to like
Hmm.
keep, I don't know, yeah, again, like keep their minds going. Like talk about something that's really relevant to them, not as much like this drama,
Absolutely.
We talk about this a
And
lot in
things that you
SPED
might
too, on how to
just switch gears
engage
for them,
students
just knowing that all this
and how
thing
important it is
distracting
to
them, not distracting them, but
create like
if
fun
they're
lesson
super
plans
engaged
and
in
stuff
what
like
you're doing,
that
they're
to
less likely
engage all your
Has
students.
there ever been a class that you've had that you've walked in and things have been rough, like you've just had a rough day, but then the class is okay and it's good and you're engaged, and for that hour you forget all the stuff that you've been dealing with? And
Hmm.
if you can create classrooms where that happens, then it's if it's engaging enough, then they might be able to be just to forget what the other stuff that's going on. But that always comes back to building relationships. That's what it is. Like if you have good relationships with them, you'll be able to handle that a lot easier. And also even like pulling out like, so there's a lot of questions I've had from student teachers that are like, how do you have a one-on-one conversation with a kid without singling them out? So if you notice somebody's sad and you're
Before
like,
or
hey,
after
you wanna
class,
go
maybe?
chat, how do you do that without making them feel worse? Which, is a good
Or
question.
just
And my
try
response
and
to that was simply
read the
pull kids out all the
situation.
time for good things. All the, like if you have conversations with them all the time, make that a norm,
Hmm.
so that if that happens, they know that it's not directed at them.
Constant
You
check-ins,
know,
so you
because all
can
of this comes
identify
back to
their
making safe
moods,
classrooms.
their
Let's
personality.
see, what was the one? The peer groups. Okay, so let's talk about. Does anybody have ever heard the term controversial student? You ever heard that term?
Talk about this in
Who's
ours
seen
as
Mean
well.
Girls?
Yep.
Okay, good. Jackson, that's your homework. Go watch Mean Girls. Trust me, there's a reason. Regina George is a controversial student because everybody likes her, but nobody knows why. She's not a nice person. So controversial students
Yeah.
tend to be students that, for some reason, have a whole lot of power, but for no good reason, if that makes sense. And everybody wants to be them, but you don't really not sure why. So what do what has anybody been in a classroom or remembered like when they were younger that there was a student that just kind of dominated classrooms, and when
Yep.
they walked in, everything would change? Remember
Yeah,
that at all? What
definitely.
did your teacher do? Do you remember?
Got frustrated with them because they're annoying to
I don't
them.
think my teacher did anything. I think my teacher just treated them exactly the same as everyone else.
Did it work?
I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to that. I just kind of sat in class and took notes.
So you were able to disengage from that.
They're really vocal about who they were. It would be annoying for the teacher.
In terms of what you just described, I don't really know if we ever had like I mean, I'm sure we did have a controversial student, and I just wasn't paying attention. But I do remember that. I guess, what are you asking is like, so controversial students, like, are they like just like bratty, or are they like they're just like mean to people, or is that what they are?
They seem to have a weird amount of power.
Like they have this kind of arrogance around them that they think they can do.
Like they're like the popular person in school,
I'm having a hard time
almost privileged, like they're a step above other people in high school. There's definitely people like that in my high school, I'd say.
But I just have no interest in watching that show. But I think I get what you're trying to say, where it's like is it that one person in a classroom where if they say, oh, this person's like this person's a loser, or this person is a weirdo, or this person is ugly, then everyone just immediately adopts.
They could stereotype others, yeah.
They set the tone. It's
Yeah,
not like they walk in
because they have that privilege to do so. They have that power.
Like that in general. Like there are humans that people in your classes that you just know when they're there, it's different. Like it feels different, and they have this weird power that they can say something and everything kind of shifts. What happens in classrooms though, and we'll get down to this. This is a little bit farther down, but we'll talk about it right now because I think it's so important. Because at the very bottom, it talks about power struggles, right? And how basically the power struggles exist when an authority is at stake of being right. So the reason I bring all of this up is again, if we understand who we're dealing with, we can first of all
you can handle the situation better.
We can take the blame off us and just know that it's who they are. Like it's just what teenagers do, and it doesn't make it right, but it's not about us.
No,
but then being able
we don't need to be right. We need to understand the student to handle the situation as best we can.
Do these things for you. It's your job. I will tell you this. It is your job to figure out how to de-escalate those kinds of power struggles.
Yeah.
Because if you engage in a power struggle, that kid is done for the day. They're not learning anymore. It's done. It's over. And so being able to,
they're not having it.
And be thoughtful about when is it that I feel like I have to be right? Why does that exist? And how can I make sure? I think I froze. I don't know why I do that. I think I freeze when I get really excited. It's funny. And so being able to consciously think about those uncomfortable situations. And I know that sounds weird that I'm encouraging you to be uncomfortable, but
if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning.
Right? I'm worried they're not going to listen. I'm worried that they're going to get like all of these things come back to you feeling like you have control over something or are in charge of something or don't want to look a certain way. And knowing that this is going to happen, this is what teenagers do, this is a developmental thing, this is normal, takes a little pressure off you in terms of it's my fault, and gives you an opportunity to think about how could I deal with this in the best way to make sure this kid gets what they need. Because if you engage in a power struggle, do you know what I mean by power struggles?
Yeah.
Maybe, kind of, sort of. I'll give you an example. Okay, so kid walks in your class 10 seconds after the bell. Okay?
They're
this
late.
Kid is normally, this kid is usually pretty on top of it, and they just happen to be late. If the first thing out of your mouth is,
Why are you late?
Why are you late?
Yeah. They're going to be like,
That kid's immediately on the defensive. And if that kid had a morning that was not pleasant, that kid is going to be obsessing about the fact that you said that the entire class.
yeah, it's just going to ruin their day even
And they're not
more.
going to learn. But if you were to say something like, and if you say, hey, what's going on? Why are you late? And they get snippy with you, right? And you get snippy back.
That's another thing too. Like, students at that age are worrying about like their peers and stuff all the time. Like, the last thing they want in the classroom is to have their teacher worry about them too, and to like be rude to them, because then they have like all the worries about their peers in the back of their head, and then also if their teacher dislikes them too or is mad at them for the day, that's just going to disrupt their learning even more. So too many distractions in their head, and they're not going to be able to engage with you.
Becomes this volleying. You've all done it. We've all had that conversation with someone where it's this constant no, I win, and to a point where as a teacher it either ends up being you have a detention, you're kicking them out of class, whatever, right? It escalates and goes and goes and goes. At no point in that conversation is that child learning anything. Does that make sense? They're in defense mode. They're in survival mode. They're not listening to you anymore. They're just trying to win.
Get through the class.
And if at any point during your teaching you want to win, I want you to think about that.
Reflect.
Okay? Because it is in the nature of a child and an adolescent to engage. If you engage back, nothing's happened. Nothing productive no learning is taking place. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So this is actually about you guys. So that's why, again, which everything is, I want you to, again, pay attention to the things that make you uncomfortable in terms of these things. If I've said something that your first instinct is, oh, well, that's okay. I want you to sit in that discomfort and go back to why do you feel like this is important?
Reflect on the discomfort.
At the very beginning of this class, earlier in, when was that, January? God, I don't even know. And the people that the main fears are, I'm worried about losing control of my classroom. I'm worried that they're going to riot. Where does that fear come from? Right? And why do you worry about that? And what do you think it's supposed to look like? Because all those things come back to, what is the point of a classroom?
And then if you want to be a better teacher, challenge yourself to be better than that and work on that issue.
And you have a kid who's fighting you, they're not learning.
Yeah.
Or if you are fighting them, you're not learning. Anytime they're fighting, there's no learning. Does that make sense? So the more you guys have a good grasp of so that's what's the point of reading this, right? This is what they do. This is who they are. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to change them. Do you remember when people tried to change you as teenagers? How did that go? Probably not great, right? You can help them.
Depends how, because they do socialize you.
Have a deep awareness of who the creature is you're dealing with. You, as the adult, can work on ways to make it less painful for both of you. Yeah? That makes sense? That was a whole thing. We're running out of time, though.
I think teachers can change students, though. There's definitely a socialization that happens with it that changes personality. You see teachers more today than you see your parents half the time. For a lot of students, at least.
About this? And be willing to admit it? No? This makes sense, right? Yeah? Okay. So again, the key always comes back to, what is my role in all of this? If I know that this is how kids behave,
yes,
then I'm prepared for it, and I can practice every day. Practice when it comes to power struggles. If you want more info on power struggles, Love and Logic is a really good resource how to deal with power struggles, because I'm telling you, it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. If you go home obsessing about a kid because he's not listening to you, that's
annoying.
He or she has the power. And the more that you can, but again, that's really hard.
That'd be so annoying.
Every day they walk into your classroom and it changes the vibe, because they have a way of influencing other people. So, did I scare anybody? Everybody go watch Mean Girls. Jasmine, I don't like it, but I'm tempted to send you like a small clip.
I got YouTube. I'll find something.
So try to find the clip at the very beginning where they're talking about Regina George. There's a whole probably 5 or 10 minutes where they talk about Regina George and who she is, and it's hilarious, because it'll be I don't know if it's at the beginning where she's she punched me in the face one time and it was awesome. And there's even at the very end of the book. It's a book. It's called Queen Bees and Wannabes, I think. And even at the very end, the teachers, there's a line, is the principal or is it Tina Fey's character that's who feels like they've been victimized by Regina George? And they all kind of raise their hand, and then the teachers start to raise their hand, because that's the kind of power certain people have, And it's not, and it always, again, you always have to come back to where that exists. So I'm not telling you to go watch it, but it's a good reference in terms of that.
It's a funny part of the movie.
About Regina George. That's it. Maybe. And then report back. Okay, so we're going to go. I'm gonna go because we're a little over time.
All right. And once again, that's group 2 from the March 26th, that past Thursday lecture.